Welcome to the show. I'm Sherry Horner, your host at Health Fitness Broadcast, bringing you the hottest fitness topics and latest health issues. Today, my guest is Mark Ottobre from Melbourne, Australia, and he was our guest about 4 years ago, so it's great to have you back. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you. 4 years goes very fast.
Yes, it does. It does. And there's a lot of people that enjoyed your interview, so I'm glad that you're back. We talked about different topics the last time. This time, we're going to talk about the difference between the training styles between a powerlifter and bodybuilding. And then later in the show, we're going to talk about physique and figure competitors and nutrition tips for them. So let's start with training for bodybuilding and powerlifting, and that's kind of something you don't do together. You're either one or the other most of the time. I do
Uh,
know some people that have done both successfully, but those are few and far between. Do you find that in Australia
um,
or?
they're few and far between, but certainly there are definitely a number of people I can think of off the top of my head who've been very successful at both. Generally, what you'll find is that a powerlifter will cross over to bodybuilding, but a bodybuilder won't necessarily cross over to powerlifting. So, I mean, it really to kind of give your listeners a nice overview on the two. Powerlifting is lifting for the sake of lifting. It's lifting, maximizing your bench, maximizing your squat, maximizing your deadlift, and even technique-wise, like in the squat, for example, using more of a hip-orientated squat, so you can handle a maximal load. And the crossover between how you squat and everyday movement, say for example jumping, well, it doesn't need to be there. Obviously, there is some crossover, but at the end of the day, the end goal and the end result is moving as much weight as physically possible. What you're really looking at is the differences between training your nervous system and training the muscle. So basically, the way you want to think of it is the nervous system training. Think of it as an Olympic weightlifter who needs to make a under 54 weight class. They need to be able to recruit as much muscle that they have in their body as possible for that one lift. Whereas a bodybuilder's goal is to hypertrophy and make bigger every single fiber in their body. Now, in saying that, obviously they need to be trained very differently. Whereas the weightlifter, or in this case we're talking about powerlifting, but the analogy still rings true. They want to be as effective and efficient through nervous system to recruit maximal muscle. Now, the way you want to think of this is, I give an analogy. We've all heard stories about, life and death situations where, small, petite females have lifted cars off their children, and, that's what you call limit strength, where the body overrides the ability and can cause harm to itself, absolutely, like broken bones, broken ligaments, to produce force that is well outside the norm of every day, because that is a life and death situation. This is an extreme example of nervous system, how we're actually strong. So again, kind of to oversimplify it and really make it clear for your listeners, everyone at the moment in their body, in their muscles, has the ability to lift a car. The differences between those that can lift the car and those that can't lift the car is our body's ability to tap into the muscle that's actually there. That's what you refer to as making your nervous system effective. So for a powerlifter, it's all about making their nervous system as effective as possible. Whereas for a bodybuilder, it's actually, well, not the opposite. I mean, they want to have an effective nervous system because they want to be strong, but they're ultimately producing and getting strong through making the muscle bigger, not through making the nervous system more productive. But at the same time, the reason why a lot of powerlifters are able to cross over to bodybuilding, there is definitely a correlation between your nervous system capacity, or how strong you are through your nervous system, and the ability to put on, meaning the stronger you are, the more ability you have to put on muscle, because your nervous system can compensate with that muscle. So this is where the two styles of training, I believe, definitely complement each other. And there are guys who are too weak to get big and too big to get strong, kind of like the duo. So they need a kind of the guy who's too big now. He would benefit from doing more like low rep training, training a little bit more like a powerlifter in terms of the rep ranges. And the guy who's big but not strong would benefit. Sorry, and the reverse is also true. So That's probably the best way to think of it. But again, in the sport of powerlifting, it really is about analyzing the lift and looking what breaks down. Because it was Louis Simmons who said, "You're only as strong as your weakest link." And what that basically means, if we load someone up on a bench press and they can't keep retracted, we know that it's their scapular retractors or their external rotators that are too weak. So therefore, we need to now work on getting that stronger to maintain. Now, from a bodybuilder's perspective, you know, their external rotators, it's a deep muscle. They're never going to train to hypertrophy because no one's really ever going to see that. You know, it's more about what body part is weak. Is it my triceps that are lagging? Okay, I'm going to do more triceps this week. So there definitely is a different training intent that goes into each. Well, if you're smart about it, there's going to be a different training intent that goes into each. But there's a guy here. His name's Ange Galati. Man, this guy is freaky. He won. I think he's the only person I ever know who has won a bodybuilding comp and broken a powerlifting record in the same week. So exceptions. It's an absolute exception to the rule. The guy is phenomenal. He broke a bench press record. I don't believe he's like in the squat. He's really known for his bench press. In the squat and deadlift, he's not as well known, but in the bench press, he's absolutely phenomenal. I think it's something like 3 times body weight, which is outstanding, amazing. And on the bodybuilding stage, absolutely incredible muscle thickness and all the rest of it. So it can be done,
Yes.
but there are definitely exceptions. The one I would say that can't be done, and it's funny when I actually get these phone call requests from people, is weightlifting and bodybuilding. And you will see very few powerlifters and weightlifters who do the same, because powerlifting again is very different than weightlifting is very not going to, well, for lack of a better word, it is more skill specific. You do need to train the lifts regularly. Where in bodybuilding as well, it's about getting as big as possible. So I don't feel weightlifting specifically, like the clean jerk and snatch, is gonna it's again, I don't like to say it can't be done, but that's the one that is extremely unlikely. And I have seen an example of a weightlifter bodybuilder. Again, you might see people who've done weightlifting go into bodybuilding, but you'll never see them done at the same time.
Yeah, I did interview a lady who had a success story, and she did both. She started doing both, and she did well in both. But a few years later, she stuck with the powerlifting, and that became her true love. And now
Mm.
she's like in the top 20 women over 50 in the world, and she's
That was for powerlifting, not weightlifting.
powerlifting. Yeah, she
Yeah.
did both at first, and then and fairly successfully, but she went to the powerlifting and still does it. So and she just really excelled
Yeah.
in that. So with powerlifting, about how many times a week do you train with powerlifting?
Well, it really depends on the individual, and there's a lot of different plans out there. I mean, one of the probably more infamous plans in powerlifting is the West Side method. And even in that, there's variations on that people have done. So, they have a max day, dynamic day, another max day, and a dynamic day, a posterior chain day, a squat day, a bench day. So, I mean, it depends on the individual how they want to break it down. I mean, one of the guys who's done a lot of education, I've done a lot of education with, is Charles Poliquin. And Charles, he's got a different approach again, depending on the phase. So my approach is obviously a little different. Everyone in powerlifting will definitely train accordance to the way they feel they get progress. And there's always I suppose what you'd call a deviation rule. You've got extremes at each end. You've got 15% of the population on one end who will make gains training, like their bench press 5 days a week. And then on the other end, you've got people who make gains training bench press, once every week or once every 10 days. And then you've got everyone in the middle, the 70%. So you've got, and I mean, that's for everything. So you've got extremes on both sides, things that will work for, genetically gifted or not so gifted people, depending on how you look at it, the extremes. And then you've got everyone in the middle. So then finding, and everything in physiology is based upon a continuum. So how would you train for powerlifting as a general plan? I mean, you're going to be, some people will work specifically on the movements. My approach is not so much to work specifically on the movements, but to work on things that are breaking down. So for example, for me, I squat. I don't squat like a powerlifter by any stretch. I squat like more of a weightlifter. So I use a high bar squat. which means my knee is the first thing to break, not my hip. If I go to a powerlifting squat, the first thing that breaks down is my lower back and adductors. So for me, like if I was the guy I want to compete in powerlifting, what are some movements that I need to include? Well, seated good mornings, sumo deadlifts, breaking down, but not actually doing deadlifts and not actually necessarily doing squats so much, but doing the movements that are going to assist the other movements. So getting the weak links strong is the way to go about it, I believe.
Good plan. Before we go on to our next topic, I wanted to talk about your place in Melbourne. And, I hear so many people call it Melbourne because it's spelled like that, but you pronounce it Melbourne, so I want to respect that.
Melbourne,
And
love, Melbourne.
Melbourne, Melbourne. So your place in Melbourne is Enterprise Fitness, and you're
Yes.
the director and owner.
Yep.
And it's private. Can you tell us about that? How a private
So,
fitness center
yeah,
works?
well, we it is an exclusive studio. I've got shipped in the best of the best equipment in everything. So we've got a Leica, we've got Watson's dumbbells, we've got Australian barbell, calibrated plates, attachments that you'll never have seen anywhere, micro plates, everything. It's the best of the best. All our stuff is branded as well. We've got a nice 16-meter strongman track. We've got all the strongman equipment too, heavy dead balls that go up to 85 kilos. So we really got some really neat tools. When people come in, I've got over, I think, 21 bars. It's about 21, 22 bars that we actually have in the facility. So for a personal training studio, we are extremely well equipped with the best of the best. So we don't do memberships. We don't do casual fees. The only people who can use our facility are personal training clients, which means that when people come in, every session is with a trainer. There's no yahoos, as we say in Australia, or randoms, or meatheads, or anything like this to get in the way of your workout. So when someone spends an hour with us, it really is an hour. It's not 15 minutes waiting for the squat rack, 15 minutes waiting for the bench press,
Right.
doing a warm up and then see you later. It's we tell our clients come in an hour early. 10 minutes early. Do your warm ups. That way we can maximize your session. And it's just a really, really lovely environment for people to train in. One of the clients actually said that when they train with us, it feels like they have 7 trainers. Why? Because everyone's supporting each other. Everyone's encouraged. Even though we're not necessarily training that person, we all support each other. It's a team.
That's so
So and
cool.
it's very different. And sometimes there's competitiveness. So someone might be doing prowler runs, and then another one of our clients needs to do prowler runs. So all of a sudden, there's a competition that goes on between clients, which is good. It fosters that training environment. So that's a little bit about us, I suppose. But we really work with people who really want to excel and achieve excellence in what they're doing. So
That's a good atmosphere with the trainers being united like that because a lot of fitness centers that are um, multiple fitness centers where the trainers are competitive in a
mm,
bad way, like
yeah,
fighting
well,
for those clients. They have to make that income. So that's good that the format that you have there. I think it sounds really good.
yeah, it's very conducive. So, I mean, we often, because we train a lot, we're often referred to as the trainers. So we get a lot of personal trainers in. A lot of trainers, they want to work for us as well because of that,
Mhm.
because they realize that it's a team. It's not they're not competing. So, yeah, for that reason, it works very well. And obviously all the other reasons. But I run things like team trainings for the guys. Like yesterday, we did a team training. If I can get in like a couple of months ago, I got in a guy named Derek. What's his name? Derek Boyer, Australia's strongest man, and he ran a dead ball workshop, and it was just nice. Like we all train when we can. We all train together and compete
Awesome.
against each other a little bit. So
That
it's a
sounds
good
good.
environment.
So
Yeah.
he came in to do a seminar, but you do an internship. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. The internship program is, I'm truly grateful for running the internship program, putting that one together. It's a 3-day course that I put together, and it's all with me. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's not something that, you know, people talk about business, delegate as much as you can. So blah, 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 blah. For me, the internship is a way of giving back, and I truly do love running it. It's the kind of course that I wanted when I started. Somewhere where it's a hub of information, an example of what to do, and just puts you on a very good path of like, here are the sound principles, follow these principles, and you'll have success. So the first day that we do is all on training. And over the 3 days, I make all the interns very, very sore because we do 7 sessions in total over 3 days. We do 2 on the Friday, 2 on the Thursday, 2 on the Friday, and another 3 on the Saturday. And I pair them in a way that is for maximal soreness. So we have some sore interns walking out. But in between, we do all the lecturing and teaching. So I go over technique, form, periodization, how to periodize, how to keep client notes, how to put programs together, examples of programs, showing them, how to be onto it with your clients, like how to be professional, and how to put systems in your business, especially when it comes to program. And I show them my systems as well. And then they see the depth that this isn't something that I just one day woke up with and, oh, okay, here it is. Here are my systems. It's something that, like programming, I'm always working on. I'm always looking to get better and always pushing the boundaries, having difficult clients that need more. Like Janet, for example, been programming her since 2007. That's a lot of programming, like doing a program every 4 weeks, thinking of innovative ways to hit the muscle, and ways that she doesn't get bored and ways that she continues to respond. That's a lot of work, but also what it does, having those clients, is it pushes your ability as a trainer, to find better answers and to do better ways of doing things, to the point where you've done it with her. Hang on, would this work with Beck, or would this work with Christy, or would this work with Michelle? And then using those systems and then making tweaks to those systems so you have a better system and then able to move that forward. So I show that in the first day. The second day, we do the nutrition day. So I talk about, and this is something I've spent a long time thinking about. I mean, we run, as I said, around 200 sessions a week. So I see a lot of personal training and I see a lot of questions about diet and nutrition, like lots. And for a while, and I'll be honest with this, the way we did it overwhelmed people. So one day I was thinking, I was actually having a shower and I came up with a I suppose, amazing idea. And I created a different system around it. And since then, people have found it a lot better and easier to implement. And, I talk to the guys about doing that. And also I spend a lot of time on communication, because often you can have the best plan, but it's the way you communicate that plan to your client.
Right.
The way I always explain it with personal training is that often what happens in relationships is that, there's you and there's the client, and then somehow, some reason, there's a bit of tension that's injected into that. And all your language needs to be around removing the tension and making your client realize that you're on their team. It's not you versus them, it's you and you. And if they had a bad day, if they ate the wrong thing, that's okay. There's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no blame. Having the conversation, okay, so what are you looking to achieve? Not injecting your values, and teaching the guys actually how to do it in a way that makes sense. Then the third day, and also there's a lot of other stuff like supplements, talk about autoimmune disease, talk about, not disease, talk about how autoimmune process works, so things like gluten sensitivity and the rest of it. And then the third day I talk about life principles and business principles, because I believe the two are married, and you can't, for me, I can't separate business from life principles. And to be successful in business, you need to have solid life principles, money management principles, emotion management principles, goal management principles.
Right.
So we do all that on the third day, and 3 training sessions.
So when now Australia has a marketing thing to visit Australia, and the marketing word is someday. So someday I will come to Australia and I want to visit and be there for your internship, just to see it hands-on, because it sounds great.
Yeah.
But I have a couple questions. We just have a minute or so to go. Physique and figure competitors, you're known for taking a lot of people in the past, bodybuilders, to you train Miss Olympia and a couple of Miss Australia, and now you've worked with a lot of figure and physique competitors. What about the diet for them? Can you give a couple tips in the last couple minutes?
Sure. Well, the diet for them, what I always advise when people are starting out is you want to have a healthy diet and then make modifications to a healthy diet. What a lot of people do when they come in is they have a very unhealthy lifestyle and they see that stage, and what they want to do is they want to get up on that stage and compete. So you can get in shape to do a show, or you can be in shape and then do a show. I'd much rather the later. Get yourself in shape, maintain that shape, and then from that place you decide to do a show because it's going to be a lot easier on the body. A lot of people, what they do is they'll crash diet right down, you know, and that does have an effect on health. Anything that's lost fast can also be gained fast. So, I mean, in a very easy way, in a minute or less, kind of to summarize, it's foods that are hunted, fished, gathered, and plucked. I mean, it is basically a high protein. You know, some people, the magic things that you, well, not magic, but the two things you really manipulate over time, someone's carbohydrate intake and someone's fat intake. I mean, some people respond better with higher fat, some people respond better with higher carb. How do you know that? Well, you get people started on a plan and then you test and you measure the changes. And the only way to do that properly is through body fat measurements or skin folds as we do it. And then really seeing the desired change being met. It's not a magic formula. I mean, the way I do it, the method I have, it takes time. You have to actually commit to the client. You can't fake it. You can't just print off a plan of Word and pretend that, you know, they're going to get their results in 12 weeks. You have to be constantly on it and constantly tweaking. And if things aren't working, you can ask questions. And I mean, you know, you might run in like something like an organic acid test, or get them to do their bloods and see what their vitamin D is like, see what their red blood cell magnesium or zinc is like. So go to that next level and using the tools that you have available to you, not only to improve their body composition, but to improve their health. So, I mean, there's many different ways you can approach it. Some people are tougher case studies than others. Some people, if you've got gut issues when starting a comp, it's going to be harder. You know, if you're in optimal health, you know, we get a lot of girls I had one the other day, came in on Friday. You know, she right now looks amazing. She'll be very easy to get ready. She's carrying a little bit of body fat in her legs, no problem. You know, but that's just going to take a little bit of time for her to get that down. But, you know, upper body, she could walk on stage today. She's very, very high standard. I mean, obviously there can be some tweaking in that and bring up some body parts. So ultimately you want someone in before starting a prep, you want them, the biggest take home that I would say is they need to have a hell of a lot of food before starting a prep. If that isn't present, that's the first thing that someone needs to work with. Because if you binge, I'm not putting a guilt trip on anyone saying it's bad, but if there is an unhealthy relationship with food and you binge, comp prep is going to be the worst thing for you.
Good tip. Good tip. Very good tip. Okay, before we go, I want you to show me your shoe. So it's time for share your shoe. And tell me
My
about your
shoe.
favorite shoe that you're wearing.
Well, this shoe, if you can see it here, it's the Brook Beast. So I went to a lower leg biomechanist quite some time ago, actually, and I asked him what was the best shoe on the market. And because I have a wider than normal foot, he said to me, the Brook Beast is the best shoe on the market. So since 2006, every year, I've brought essentially exactly the same shoe. The reason why I buy this shoe is because Brook Beast is one of the more expensive shoes on the market because I am a heavy, obviously, runner wear. I'm in the gym every day, basically training people. But in the sole, it's got it's basically reinforced with I don't know. I suppose it's some form of a plastic material at the bottom, so you get a lot more wear out of it. So a lot of the other shoes, for me anyway, and I get a lot of wear through the foot, a lot of wear through the front. With these, you know, I mean, honestly, I don't even have to. The only thing that wears on them is the bottom. They get very flat because I wear them so much.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I mean, you know, I could keep them probably for 2, 3 years. So it's the same shoe I buy every year. It's almost like every September, got to buy a new pair of Brooks Beasts. They're a more expensive shoe, but they last a lot longer. You know, probably don't look as nice as like what the Nikes do, but in terms of functionality, it's the best shoe you can buy, especially if you have a wide foot.
Good. Good deal. Love your shoe. My latest shoe is the A6 GT 2000. Just got these. Started running them last couple weeks. Love it. Love it. Love it. So that's my shoe for today. And I want to thank you for all your great tips and information. Thanks again for coming back. And we'll have some information in the link below so you can get in touch with Mark if you have questions for Maximus Mark Ottobre. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you again before 4 years from now. Okay? Cool?
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care. Thanks for joining us.